My name is Riva Labby. I am an associate producer of social media content at ESPN, and my main job is to lead strategy and execution on all of ESPN's college football social media channels. This presentation is for the social media director at ESPN, and by the end of this presentation, we'll be able to make some actionable recommendations as to how ESPN's college football handles can be the best in the business. Let's get started. In this project, I will be exploring the analytics behind ESPN's college football handles. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We have a Vine account, and we also dabble in Instagram stories and sometimes on Snapchat, though we do not post content on Snapchat regularly. The ESPN college football handles were established back in 2009 and 2010, but I was hired on August 1st of 2016, so I will be looking at the period of August 1st through October 31st, 2016, comparing some of that data to last year to see how we are growing year over year, and then just diving deeper into that content to see how we are performing this year. And like I said, I will be specifically diving into post-level and page-level data from the major platforms in order to see how we're doing, where we can get better. By the end of this, we will be able to recommend some steps that we can take in order to make our content the best on the internet. Starting with fan analysis, it's really, really important for us to figure out who exactly we are speaking to. We need to know who our audience is and what that demographic wants to see on their social media pages. So we need to dive deep into the page level analytics to see who's on our page, where our fans come from, and what teams they really care about. Obviously, we need to learn the split between men and women, where they are from, the major cities and countries that they are from, and by doing that, we can identify key players and teams to focus our content on. Starting with female fan distribution, as you can see, we have many more male sports fans as compared to female sports fans on our page. In fact, when diving deep into the data, and you will see the similar skew on the next page, we find that it's around 75-25 male to female on all of our platforms. And here on Facebook, you can see that we have 23% of our audience is female. To me, it makes sense that we will have more male followers than female followers, but I still find this very, very interesting because we do know that women love sports just as much as men, and so I did expect this number to be a little higher, but it's very important for us to keep in mind. As you can see, though, we really can key in on this target demo of about 18 to 45. In some instances, we can even extend that to 55, but truly, we can really hone in on this millennial generation of like 18 to 40. Moving to Instagram and Twitter, we see a very, very similar distribution of fans. As I said, kind of that 75-25 split, and even on Twitter, it's even a little bit more exaggerated with that 79-20, so almost 80-20. Again, I was really, really surprised to see these numbers, and I think that moving forward, it's going to be very important for us to keep an eye on these numbers. And as far as where our fans are from, we found out that 99% of our fans are located in the United States. The next two countries where our fans are coming from are Mexico and Canada, but besides that, truly 99% of our fans are located in the United States, which makes sense because college football is played in the United States. And the top U.S. locations are, not surprising, but major cities: New York, Atlanta, Houston, Dallas, LA, and Alabama. So knowing that, we know that we can kind of focus in on some of these southern teams. Atlanta, the University of Georgia, Georgia Tech. Dallas, in Houston, we can really focus in on the University of Texas and Texas A&M, Baylor, TCU. In Alabama, we really want to know that we want to keep an eye on the University of Alabama and Auburn University football teams. We know that by talking about these teams, we can really win with our fans. Moving next to visibility analytics, in order to educate our audience on the latest sports news and information in the college football landscape, we really need to get in front of as many people as possible. It is, of course, everybody's goal on social media to get in front of as many people as possible. And so to do that and to take a deeper look into our visibility analytics, we need to move out to a little bit more of a macro level, see how we're growing, and if people are liking our content. Fan acquisition is really at the top of my yearly goals every year. I have a yearly goal of growing our channel 43% this year, and so it's a number that I'm constantly keeping an eye on. And I think it's really important to track that and compare it to last year and see how we are performing compared to last year. But we also know that we are in a sport that has seasons, so we really know that in the off-season we need to lower our expectations as to what our fan growth is going to be. For example, we can expect to see a 50% bump in total growth during the college football season, which is around August through January, and then expect to see it kind of dip off in the off-season. So by knowing that and keeping those expectations in mind, we can really look at the numbers and see how we're doing. Again, these numbers are really for just August through October, but as you can see, I put the growth numbers from 2015 and 2016, and so we could compare them. As you can see, Twitter and Instagram, we've really done a great job this year of growing, and especially on Twitter, we've really separated ourselves from last year, and we can lend that to a different strategy. Last year, the accounts were run by a different director, so this year we have new directors and all new people on the channels and new strategies. So by having new strategies and using data to back up those strategies, as you can see, we've done a great job of growing our Twitter and Instagram feeds. Now, Twitter, on the other hand, Facebook, on the other hand, is very, very hard to grow with the algorithm. We know that anywhere from only 2 to 9% of our audience is seeing our content whenever we post it. That's not a very large amount, and we already don't have as many likes on Facebook as we should. So it is a little troubling to see that the growth has dipped below 2015 on Facebook. We have posted less than they did last year, which could be a reason why this is dipping, but I also think it has to do with Facebook's algorithm continuing to grow and continuing to lower the count of people that are seeing your content. Facebook really wants its partners to pay to play, basically pay for advertising, pay to boost posts, and pay to get in front of more people. But at ESPN, we do not pay for any content. We do not boost any of our content. It is all organic. So with that in mind, I think that is a big explanation for the dip that you see. But also, I believe that by more thoughtfully picking our content, which I'm going to talk about a little bit more in the post-performance section, that we can, in fact, get above that 2015 growth rate. Here you'll see the sum of monthly unlikes on Facebook, and as you can see, this chart makes me feel a little bit better. People are not really leaving much more than they did last year. We can expect to see an increase in the daily unlikes just because during football season we're posting a lot more. We are posting anywhere, from 5 to 15 times a day, whether that's articles, videos, photos. And so the more that you bump up your engagement and the more you bump up your posting, the more you have to expect to see followers go. But as you can see here, it's not too terribly different from last year. They're pretty comparable. So that makes me feel pretty fine with what we're doing now. Moving to engagement analysis, engagement is why we do what we do. We want our fans to consume our content and enjoy it on their social platforms, because we can never forget that truly our fans are on social media to have fun. And so we really want to serve as that second screen option for our fans while they're watching college football on our television network. And so our yearly goals are very much also tied to engagement, as before I mentioned they're tied to fan acquisition and growth, but they're also really tied to engagement. We want to see that increase in engagement year over year. This year we are tasked with a 26% increase in engagement from the last year. And so we really focus in on Twitter and Facebook for that because we don't always have the best analytics surrounding Instagram to get those numbers. So we really focus in on having those goals for Twitter and Facebook. And in order to gauge if our content is currently being optimized best for higher engagement, we need to not only look at how the content is performing, but average it against the years past to see how it is performing. So basically, as you can see in the engagement analysis, I totaled up how many total Facebook posts we did during August, September, and October, and then also I added up the total engagement. As you can see, it makes sense that in September and October we are ramping up our content, but what's really interesting to me is seeing that although we posted much less in August versus September, the engagement was really up there. What I can attribute that to is that fans were really excited about college football season starting. And so because they were excited, they were engaging more, they were liking, they were sharing with their friends, they were commenting because they were really, really ready to get the college football season started. We see this dip in October, and it's because the excitement has leveled off a little bit. October is this in-between month where college football has been on for a couple months now, but the playoff rankings aren't yet, so it doesn't matter too much. So we are fine with seeing this little October slump, knowing that in November we expect to see it ramp back up, and our goal is to actually have those November numbers higher than the September numbers. So moving to Twitter, you can see the same thing where we did post a lot more in September and October than we did in August, except for, as you can see in August, there wasn't necessarily that increase in engagement as on Facebook. So as you can see, having more tweets does obviously equate to more engagement. But what I really want to look at in the next section is just because you post more doesn't necessarily mean that your fans are enjoying all that content. Total engagement is something to look at, but I really want to take a look later at the average engagement to see how our content is actually performing. Moving to post-performance analysis, the goal of every handle, as I said before, is to get in front of as many users as possible. And in order to do that, we need to know how our posts are performing, to know if we need to continue to create that type of content or if we need to try new types of content. For example, are our fans liking our video content, or do we need to scale back? Do our fans like our graphic designs, or should we try a different direction? Those are the kind of questions that we have to ask ourselves in order to create the best content possible. So in order to gauge how ESPN college football handles are performing, we need to dive into how many people are viewing our content currently. We currently know that much of our audience never sees the content we're posting, as I said previously, and so in order to combat that, we need to look at the content we're posting, and then we're going to make actionable recommendations to help boost the post-level impressions and reach our content. As you can see, this is similar, but this time I'm taking the total Twitter impressions and I'm averaging that out in hundreds of thousands in this case to see how it's actually performing. So before I said in the previous section, that we were posting more but the engagement wasn't there. But just because the engagement wasn't there, you can see in these graphs that the impressions were there. People were seeing it, even though, we only posted about 146 tweets on Twitter during the month of August. A lot of people saw this, and I attribute that to, again, people just being very excited about the college football season started and sharing with their friends, and so that is why that number is so high. Also, it is worth noting that we have a much larger audience on Twitter. We have over 1.6 million followers on Twitter, and so just regardless of how many times we post, we are going to get a higher number of impressions just because we have so many more fans on Twitter. But still, as you can see, the averages here are interesting. I think it's also interesting to point out that, we posted many more times during the month of September, but the average was actually down. And so looking at that, I think it's important for us to ask ourselves, how important is it to send more tweets versus sending less tweets that have a higher number of average impressions? As you can see, in October, we lowered the amount of tweets that we were sending, but it was still a little bit lower on average impressions. But again, I just attribute that to the October slump of college football. Here we're looking at Facebook, and it's a little similar. We have the total reach in August equates to a higher average reach. Again, I really just think this is because people were really excited about college football and they just wanted it to get started. In September, we posted a lot of stuff on Facebook, and as you can see, it really wasn't that much of a dip, but we really realized that we were posting way too much on Facebook during the month of September. So while you can see we saw a very healthy total reach of almost 30 million people, we just decided that it wasn't worth it for us. Many of our posts were not getting the average engagements that we wanted them to have. But still, with the amount of posts that we got and how great some of them did, the average reach is still pretty great. October, again, that October slump, we know that we're going to hit it hard back again in November and get those numbers back up. So the key takeaways. One of the most major takeaways from this data is the key demographic. I never want us to forget that we are creating content for males in that 18 to 44 key target demographic. By always keeping this in mind, we'll be able to develop a voice in the type of content that this demographic wants to see. We can really continue to dive into more data on Twitter and Facebook to find out other interests of our fans. For example, by diving into the Twitter data, we know that our college football fans also really care about other sports, specifically NFL and NBA. So when there's ways to collaborate on those with those types of content, we really want to make sure that we do that. Also, we also know that our fans care about music a lot also. So when there is room to insert music, specifically music references when talking about players, that could be a really big win for us. We also saw that posting more content does not necessarily equal success. We need to be much more thoughtful in choosing content to post and whether we need to post it on all platforms. We have different strategies for all platforms, and we don't post all content on all three of the platforms, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. But we do need to be more thoughtful in the way we choose it and how often we're posting. And if we do that, we can really expect to see a rise in average engagement and hopefully reach our goal of raising engagement this year 26%. According to the social marketing expert Neil Patel, by publishing the timeless content that fans can see no matter what time it is, whether it's a day after, whether it's 5 days after you posted it, it's going to be much more useful for our audience for longer periods. And so because of that, Facebook is going to serve it to more users in their newsfeed. And let's be honest, we all want our content to be served to the most fans as possible, and we know that it's hard on Facebook. So we need to really remember that we're not just necessarily in the business of content that has an expiration date, but that timeless content and those memories that our fans will be able to enjoy no matter when they see it. And also, according to PageMoto, the half-life of a tweet is somewhere in the range of 15 to 20 minutes. I know as a content creator, sometimes I'm afraid of publishing content over and over because I'm afraid that our fans are going to unlike our page or unfollow us. But actually, we have to remember that a lot of our fans are never even seeing our content because of the algorithms and just because they're busy. So because of that, we need to repost our great content that we've carefully selected and curated for our fans, and that will not only boost total engagement, but average engagement. When we have a great video, we don't need to only share it one time. If we share it one time and we thoughtfully share it multiple more times throughout the next coming weeks, we know that we're not only going to get higher video views, but our fans are really going to enjoy it and much more people are going to see it. So in closing, as you can see, by analyzing the data, we're able to take concrete and actionable steps in order to make our feeds better. At ESPN, our motto is to serve sports fans anytime and anywhere. And in order to really live up to that, we need to take some steps, as I said in the previous slide, to become better and to reach our fans in a more authentic way. When we're able to identify why certain pieces of content and campaigns worked and why they didn't, that's when we'll be more successful. One prime example of that is post frequency. We saw that posting more often does not necessarily make you more successful. So by cutting down on how often we're posting and making sure that we're curating content more efficiently, we can expect to see much better numbers and a higher value. By using the provided data points, we are sure that the steps we take in order to enhance our platform, they're backed by numbers. They're not just backed by opinions. And that's really, really important. And by incorporating the data in this report, we can truly take our handles to the next level of growth and engagement and reaching our year goals. And by doing this, we can become the #1 college football source on social media, which of course is our goal. Thank you very much for taking the time to read this report. I hope you learned a lot about our ESPN college football handles, and I hope that you see why by taking these steps we can increase engagement, fan acquisition, and the growth that we need to be able to take our handles to the next level. Thank you.